All right, good morning. Okay, let me get my screen share started. And today we are going to do the fun trick of having two sets of slides so that hopefully I can actually see you guys as I'm talking today. So if I forget to advance the one you all can see, you're welcome to pop it in the chat or come off mute and let me know and I will move it forward. All right. So with that, let's get going. I think we are at time and my team is here to help co-host. So here we go for YIC and YIC and Prevention Mentor Webinar 52. All right, this morning's agenda for our mindfulness moment and introduction to presenters, I'll take care of it as usual. And then I'm going to have Garrett Russell share with us about problem solving and goal setting with students and intensive intervention tracking and reporting, a little deeper dive than what we provide in training. And then after Garrett, we'll hear from Danielle Pedersen on the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And like usual, that last 15 minutes we will dedicate to the mentor breakout rooms, either continue the conversation with Garrett, connect with Danielle and ask more questions about WIOA, or check in with the trainers and other mentors about problems of practice. All right. Thank you. So, like for our mindfulness moment this morning, I thought it would be fun since we're about halfway through the school year, I think. I don't know. I didn't do the math this morning, but we've made it partway through the school year at the very least. And so I'm curious if anybody has a Connect meeting success that they'd like to share out, of course, without student names. A really good goal setting session or something that you and your student were able to problem solve, maybe an intervention that was new that you tried that was successful, or maybe you have a new icebreaker activity that you've learned this school year that you're willing to share with everybody. Our team gets to do student interviews more often these days, and I'm finding that I would like a few more icebreaker activities to add to my tool belt, just so that when I'm meeting kiddos, we have an opportunity to have a conversation as we're doing introductions. So, if everybody will indulge me and open the Zoom chat, there should be a menu across the bottom of your screen, maybe under the participant pictures, that has options for you, and one of those should be chat. You might have to click on the little bubble that says more to be able to access the Zoom chat. And then it usually opens in the pane where you see the participant pictures, but sometimes it'll open in its own little pop-up screen on your computer. So while everybody finds their Zoom and gets that going, I'm going to go ahead and share my favorite icebreaker activity just to get the conversation started. We'll just take a moment here. And if you're not able to find the chat and you prefer to come off mute and share it with us, that's welcome as well. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but I thought it was fun to see what AI came up with for us, just so you guys know. I used one of the educational AI tools and asked it to create images of a Connect meeting, and this is what it came up with for us. But I thought it was actually kind of fun because it did have some icebreakers just built into it. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but the middle one has some cards, and the student says, my favorite hobby is dot dot dot, and then the other one says I became a mentor because dot dot dot. So I thought that was fun. I also like the middle bottom picture because it has the two truths and a lie, which can easily be a fun conversation. Okay, all right. I'm starting to see some come in the chat. Dave, absolutely. Which is your favorite animal and why? Dave is a new cat fan. He didn't know he liked cats until recently. I'm an old hat, so we've been enjoying that together this year. Cindy just came in. She asks students what they do in their free time. Oh, that's always a good one. Are they a gamer? Do they like sports? Do they want to go to the dog park? What do they like to do? All right, let's see. Julia has a deck of conversation cards. Ugh, great idea. Something that makes it so you don't have to think out of out of the clear blue sky. Sometimes two choices or too many choices. Matt likes to ask what they think a mentor is and how. Oh, it popped. And this can help him know what they need most. Oh, I love that, Matt. That not only lets you know if you've explained yourself well, but what they need. Amy likes to ask students to share something they're proud of this week. Oh, that's awesome and simple. I think it's Erica. Everybody's logins are always interesting, but what is the best part of your day so far? Just bringing it right home, right present to that meeting. I love it. Ashley says when working with students all year, knowing the struggles in math, but she hasn't wanted to admit it. 2 weeks ago, let's see, cursor out of the way. 2 weeks ago, we got the school math intervention aide involved, and last week the student reached out to the aide for help. Oh my gosh. The aide pulled the and helped the student, and they were able to get the work done. Hopefully, she will continue reaching out. That is a huge success if we can get the student to reach out on their own. I love that, Ashley. Thank you for sharing. I actually have goosebumps. Okay, let's see another one. Erica, what is your favorite subject in school? That is a good icebreaker. Looks like Amy shared she likes using fun would you rather. Ooh, those are fun scenarios. Would you rather ideas. I like that. Would you rather live in a house of cheese or candy? Oh man, that is a real tough choice. I don't actually want to make a choice. Ashley also likes to ask what their favorite animal is and why. Esther has elementary students draw their mood. Ooh, I bet that's really fun and interesting to watch elementary students draw their mood. Andrea says we play card games like War or Slapjack and talk at the same time. She also likes Two Truths and a Lie and Good News Minute or Bad News. Oh, I like that also. Dave's over here with his candy. Yeah, Dave, we know about you. But we do appreciate that sometimes that icebreaker really is that tangible item that they can have for a minute. I am the fidget queen who always has a little pop to share, so I like that one as well. Annie likes to have them choose a word that describes how they're feeling. I love it. Well, thank you for indulging me this morning and for sharing some of those. I'm definitely going to put them in my tool belt for when I go out and start interviewing students here later this spring. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get our presenters introduced. So first we have Garrett Russell, and he's been with the State Board of Education for about 2 years now on the Youth and Care and Attendance team. And he came to us with 13 years of teaching experience. He also owns a stand-up paddleboard business on Lake Superior and has created an experiential curriculum for youth. Garrett's background includes roles as an elementary teacher, behavior coach, and district attendance specialist, as well as an adventure coordinator who led outdoor educational trips. Garrett utilizes the outdoors to build trust and regulation skills with students who may have behavior challenges that helps them re-engage with learning. All right, after Garrett, we will have Danielle. And Danielle works as an adult education specialist for the state board. She supports programs around the state that offer adult basic education, high school completion, and adult English language courses. She also serves as the Utah State GED administrator and is an educational liaison with the Utah State Department of Corrections and participates on the State Workforce Development Board. She received a bachelor's degree in communication from Weber State University and a master's degree in educational psychology from Utah State University. And she also completed a postgraduate program from Western Governors University in educational leadership. Danielle is definitely a Utah-grown educator, and we are excited to have her back. All right, with that, I am going to stop my screen share and turn it over to Garrett.
All right, did that work? Am I sharing?
Let me see. Yes, I found the screen. Sorry, I have the
All
two
right,
screens
cool.
here.
Yeah, the switch over, you never know. Well, cool. Thanks for the intro. Glad to be here. So yeah, we are for our webinars, we're looking at adding core competency components just to keep refreshing things and content that you learn in the initial 2-day mentor training. So today I'm going to be diving into problem solving and goal setting in your Connect meetings, which is kind of like nice for the icebreaker since we talked about that. And then a little bit more information on intensive intervention reporting. And we'll get into that here as we roll through these. So, goal setting is like one of my favorite things. I'm a goal dork. I set my own goals. I love setting goals with students. And I know we talk about the SMART goal acronym when we do our training. If you can see on this slide, I added the E. So I always talk about SMART E goals. Um, and just to do a quick refresher, like SMART goals, the S stands for specific. So that would be a clearly defined and detailed what needs to be accomplished steps and who is responsible for those steps. The M is measurable. It has concrete criteria for tracking progress and determining when objectives have been met. So thinking about a like percentage or a number of days that you're going to show up. It has to be achievable, so a realistic and attainable goal with the skills and resources available to that student or at the school. It has to be relevant. So if our goal in Check and Connect is to get them to graduate, and you're setting a goal to help a student get a girlfriend, that's not really relevant. So we wouldn't use that as a Connect meeting SMART goal. And it also has to be timely. So if we have a student for 2 years, we can't have this be a 10-year goal because that's just not in our time commitment that we have that student. And then the E that I always like to add on there is to evaluate. So constantly checking in to see the progress, to modify the goal, or to see if any additional resources or support are needed. And that helps you keep that goal fresh in your mind so that you're moving forward and trying to achieve that. And we do have a breakout room. So if there's questions, you can throw them in the chat, but we'll hop in the breakout room that I'm in. You can ask there as well. So tips for success when you're goal setting. I like to think about it just like you would in a classroom. So starting to plan backwards. What is the ultimate goal? Our long term, it can be end of year, end of 2 years, but realistically, that's just to get the kid to graduate. And then as we have like our larger goal, what's a mid-range goal that will help them get there and show that they're on track? So that could be increasing their GPA, that could be passing a certain number of classes, things like that. At the end of each term, or when the goal is achieved, you're going to set a new midterm goal or revise the goal to continue that growth. And then after that, you're going to plan your short-term goals. These could be weekly, they could be monthly, but what is it that you can do with that student to help them gain confidence and support their progress? We know that at-risk students typically have never set goals, so maybe even having really quick wins as you're going along the way, just to get them to buy into that process, motivate them. Also, just kind of chunking that progress, picking one class at a time or one assignment at a time to turn in versus saying you need to get all of these 20 things done because you're so far behind. It makes it a little bit more achievable and attainable for them. I did come up with some scenarios, so this is like the setup of it, and then we'll go into a long term, a midterm, and a short term goal with the same student based on this scenario. So Paul is a 10th grader that has an attendance issue. I'm the attendance specialist, so that's kind of where I lean on. He misses 1 to 2 days per week, which means that he's a chronic attender. He is starting to fall behind in his classes, and his grades are beginning to be impacted. Paul was identified for his school's Check and Connect program because of his attendance issues. His mentor is working with him to set goals to improve his attendance. So let's see what Paul and his mentor came up with. So starting backwards with the long-term goal, Paul's long-term goal for this year is that by the end of this school year, he will be attending school regularly, developing habits to be more successful the following school years. Paul will do this by identifying why he's missing and working with his mentor to find solutions. Paul will have met his goal if he can average missing 1 or less days of school per month for the last 2 months of the school year. Progress will be tracked during weekly Connect meetings and through short and medium term goals. And so just a little asterisk here. If Paul was already a chronic attender, this goal is probably not going to change that this year but he's developing those habits so that hopefully next year and the year after, his junior and senior year, he won't be a chronic attender. So even though by a lot of school metrics, he's still in that negative category of being a chronic attender, he's making those strides to be a better attender, which will also have his grades hopefully increase, and his sense of belonging at the school and all of those positive things we attribute to actually being there. Our next goal. So the mentor's working with Paul. We have created our long term. What do we want at the end of the year? So now let's focus on end of term goals. So at the end of this first term, Paul will reduce his absences per month in half. So instead of missing 8 days, we want him to be missing 4. Progress will be monitored each week during Connect meetings with his mentor to identify growth and problem solve around supports that are needed. Paul will work towards the last month of the term averaging 4 or less absences, which equals 1 per week, which would also have him on track for that end of year goal, which will help determine his next mid-range goal. So we'll take how he does that progress and move that in there. Again, Paul's still going to be a chronic attender, but he will have increased his education time and can then address additional growth for the next term through a new mid-range goal. So that's where that E on the SMARTY goals comes in. You're going to evaluate, has he hit that goal? Is this still the same goal? Do we need to stick with it and then figure out other supports? But we have our numbers in there that makes that specific and measurable. It is achievable because it's a mid-range. It's relevant because it's around his end of year goal. And it's timely because it's just within that term. And then our next area is the short-term goals, that little chunk that's going to feed our midterm goal. This one is a monthly example. So by the end of this month, Paul will attend school 2 more days than the previous month. This will be achieved by working with the student's mentor to monitor progress at weekly Connect meetings and identifying barriers and needs of support to problem solve and find solutions. If Paul meets his goal, he will receive a McDonald's meal voucher for success. And I know in our training, we typically try not to reinforce with extrinsic rewards. But as this is like a new task for Paul and a new skill, we're trying to create buy-in and trust by saying that we'll do something and then following through. So this is kind of one of those situations where student dependent, but maybe using an extrinsic reward like a McDonald's meal voucher is appropriate. And then our short-term goal, which is going to be weekly. So this will be like Paul's first week or second week working with the mentor. Um, this week, Paul's going to show up 1 more day than the previous week. So if he's been missing 2, now he's only going to miss 1. Paul and his mentor can work with Paul's guardians to identify why he isn't coming and make arrangements to be there 1 additional day. If Paul is successful, he will earn a bag of Takis at his next Connect meeting. If Paul doesn't reach this goal, it's okay because we can reuse it for the next week. It's also okay to keep this goal for a few weeks to show how goal setting works and build the spinning wheel of success. So if it's an easy goal for him to achieve, that's okay as you're starting out with this. We want them to have that buy-in and then also feel successful. And kids like Takis, you can sub in any other snack, whatever that kid chooses. But creating this instead of you telling them what they can earn, ask what it is that they like to earn. A bag of Takis is easier than a McDonald's meal. So even like the amount of food there, that's kind of why I scaffolded it this way with Takis for the 1 week, a meal for the second or for the month. And then you can kind of develop moving up so they don't have those extrinsic rewards. All right. Looking at a growth mindset. Goal setting is a skill that you need to practice and learn. At-risk students haven't typically done this. So a couple things that you need to be aware of is having patience and look at this as some form of like a coaching opportunity. You need to develop a relationship to have that success. So I don't recommend goal setting necessarily your first week. If you don't know that student, you don't know what motivates them, you haven't put in the time to build those relationships. So goal setting might come after your first month. It might come after your second week. It's really student dependent. There's not a specific timeline on that, but I wouldn't get into it until you have an established relationship. Um, Next is going to be celebrating the effort, especially early on. If they don't reach their goal, that's not the end of the world. That's why we have a long-term, a midterm, and then short-term goals. And the short-term goals aren't very catastrophic if they don't reach them. So celebrate the effort that they're actually trying to do something new, and that they can do it the next time versus you didn't meet your goal, so you failed. I think you won't have as much buy-in if a kid feels like they're letting you down. It's also going to be hard to run the relationship. But if you're just celebrating the fact that they're trying something new, that goes a long way. Start small and achievable to feel success more often. We have that cool graphic. I think it's Dr. Finn's model of success. And so it's that spinning wheel of success, a little bit of a taste of success once you or has you wanting to get to another level of success and then another and another where the opposite can be true. So if we always focus on the things they aren't doing and the things they're failing on, they'll just see that that's their reality versus oh, I did this. Now I can do something a little harder next time. Include the parents and guardians in the goals to develop partnerships. So as you're setting these goal setting plans, part of that hour that we ask mentors to spend, you're looking at your check, you're having your connect meeting, but then it's also that family engagement and sharing what those goals are. And even asking parents, like, how can you help? So in Paul's situation, he's a 10th grader. He might not have his license yet. So maybe it's a transportation issue. So he could be needing a ride or figuring something out, and getting the parents involved gives them some buy-in, and it also gives them some power in the progress of that as well. And I always like to share my goals. So I have a professional learning plan every single year. I believe Benji's on here. He can attest to that. So we have like our own growth goals. I have my own personal goals. Like I run, I ski, I do some other things. So I set goals each year for myself, and I like to share those with students so that they know that even as an adult, that we have to work on goals and we have to progress, whether it's our job or our personal lives. And so they see it's not just some other stupid task that an adult at a school is asking them to do. There's actually relevance behind it, and other people do this as well. Um, and probably the most important thing is the follow through. If you say that you're going to provide or do something when the goal is met, make sure you do that. If you tell them you're going to like send them a positive letter to their parents saying that they've reached their goal, send that letter, send an email, like whatever it is. If you tell them you're going to do it and you don't meet your end of the requirement, then you're breaking that trust and the relationship's going to suffer, and goal setting is going to become a lot harder for you guys in the future. So a lot of times we get questions about like when is it goal setting, when is it problem solving, what's the difference? So just a couple like kind of general rules around the two. Goal setting is much more time intensive and directed towards educational outcomes to get a student to graduate. When you're thinking about problem solving, that's designed for an individualized situation. So it could be it's student specific that's preventing a student from accessing something. Maybe they need a seat change in their class because somebody's annoying them. That would be problem solving. You're moving a seat. Maybe they're having trouble with a teacher and they need to help have a conversation. That's going to be problem solving. Maybe you're going to like model it, do the I do, we do, you do method. So you go and have a conversation, then the two of you have a conversation, and then the student eventually has that on their own. Problem solving can feed goal setting and be part of it by solving the problems that lead to success, but goal setting is going to be the more in-depth version of that. Goal setting provides a target, problem solving overcomes the obstacle. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit between the two. If you have more questions, we can hop in the breakout room as well. So looking into problem solving with students in a connect meeting. So shifting down to that lower level. First, you're going to identify the problem. So ask what, when, where, who, and how. Those are generally what the problems are going to be. Analyze the problem, investigate the root causes. What is actually causing this? A kid could say like, this kid's really, really bothering them because of this. And so if you're handling like the kid bothering them instead of the reason that they're bothering them, you're not actually getting to the root cause of what the real problem is. Generate solutions. So think about a range of possible solutions. It's better if the student can come up with that. You can help with some ideas. but you're not here to judge any of their solutions. You're just here to listen to what they say. Even if they're ridiculous, you can deal with that as you get into the best solutions and selecting them. But as they're just listing them, it's okay. Sometimes they're just venting as well. Step four is going to be selecting the best. So evaluate based on the feasibility, the impact, and the resources, and then choose. So if a kid says that they should just move to Canada, is that feasible? Do we have the resources to help the kid do that? No, that's kind of ridiculous. So let's help them come up with a different solution that's actually achievable. And then after you've picked your solution, before you have the student do it, create an action plan. Detail the steps that they need to implement the solution and assign responsibilities. So if it's a conversation with a teacher, maybe you're going to do some role playing first. Maybe they want to see you have a conversation first or set it up for them. And then look at responsibilities. Ask what they need support with. Do they need me to do something? Do they need their parents to do something? Do they need the teacher to do something? And then have that follow through again so that we know that all those steps are being met and we're not the ones that drop the ball for this problem. And then it's finally time to implement. So put that plan into motion. If a kid's having a problem with another student and they choose to walk in and punch them in the face, obviously, as a mandatory reporter, you have to let them know you can't really let them go through with that. So there's certain situations we obviously, as adults, aren't going to let them just move forward with. But once they picked a good solution, let them put that in motion. And then lastly, we're going to evaluate and monitor. We're going to check to see if it worked, see if something else is coming up, and then what did they learn from the process? Maybe it was just learning the skill of advocating for themselves. But these are kind of like the general 7 steps of problem solving. This is one of the resources that Check and Connect does provide. It's the graphic organizer for problem solving. So this kind of follows through that 7 steps, just in a much prettier color-coded way. So you identify the problem. You look, can I solve this problem? If the problem's no, then you can see it slides over to revise the problem so that you can solve it. If it's something that's not solvable, we're not going to go any further. If you can, you list those 4 to 5 possible solutions, including the pros and cons, and then slide over which solution is best and circle that one. What steps do you need to take to put it into action? And then moving to the next page, what did you do? How did it go? It either worked, and then why? You're not sure. What can you do to find out? Or it didn't. And then looking at what else can I do? And you can recycle back to any of those solutions that weren't tried before if it didn't work. But yeah, this is another resource Check and Connect provides. It does align with those 7 steps, though. All right, tips for success in problem solving. Work as a team to align school and community resources and identify the procedures for accessing it. Sometimes the problem could be food or hygiene or transportation. It could be mental health. Like there's certain things that as a school or a district, you might have access to, and being able to align the resources and knowing who to go to. If it's a mental health thing, do you go to the counselor? If it's a transportation thing, should you go to the administrator? But making sure you have that streamlined process as you get a lot of these requests or problems that seem to be pretty regular. Where can you get a food pantry packet? Where do we have hygiene products, toothbrushes, deodorant, things like that? And then kind of piggybacking on that, create a bank of solutions for common problems. As you work with students, you'll probably hear a lot of similar things, especially with similar age groups. So creating a solution bank and being able to lean back on that when you hear something that was similar from a previous student would be helpful. And then for larger problems, you don't have to rush into a solution. You can be patient, you can investigate possibilities, but problem solving sometimes takes a little bit longer and you don't need to rush into it, is really the point of that one. All right. Intensive interventions or supports. This is a fun one. Um, so we get a lot of questions. Is it an intervention? Is it a support? What's the difference? Are they the same? So we kind of wanted to break down how those are different. Similar to like goal setting and problem solving, very similar, just kind of different applications and intensity for each of them. So starting with an intensive intervention, this is going to be targeted. There's always a time category based on it. and there's data around it. The purpose of an intensive intervention is to fix a skill gap, and the intensity of it is that this is going to be a tier two or a three intervention. So it's going to be a small group or individualized thing that's happening with a student. And then the duration is going to be temporary, short term, and you're going to be progress monitoring it. And then the application is going to be to change what or how a student learns or builds a skill. When we switch over to supports, these are going to be a lot more broad. You're looking at removing a barrier that a student might have, or creating an accommodation for them to learn. The purpose is just going to be to accommodate a need. And then the intensity of a support is going to be more at that tier one level. It's something that you would do for all students if they had this issue. The duration, it could be long term. And then the application, you're looking at changing the environment to provide access. So kind of the differences between those when you're looking at like purpose, intensity, duration, and application. So when is it an intervention versus a support? So I picked a scenario, and depending on the way that the scenario is handled, you can kind of see when it would be more of an intervention and when it's more of a support. So our first example, it's an intervention if you're tracking data to monitor a desired change. So it would be an intervention if you give a student a bus pass that has transportation issues and poor attendance, and then you monitor if the student's attendance increased over the next 6 weeks with weekly checks during Connect meetings to progress monitor. At the end, you decide if the goal was met or if you need a different intervention to increase the student's attendance. So we gave it time, it was 6 weeks. We monitored it weekly to see if their attendance was increasing. And then at the end, we reviewed, did we meet our goal? Has their attendance improved? The same scenario, it's a support though, if you provide an accommodation to help a student overcome a barrier. So same idea, giving a student a bus pass. It's a support when you give the student that bus pass that has a transportation issue, but you don't set a goal or monitor progress towards the goal. It's still good, but doesn't meet the criteria of an intervention. So if you provide a bus pass, you look to see a desired outcome, you monitor over a course of time, that's an intervention. It's a support if you just give them a bus pass to help them get to school, and we don't check to see if it actually improved anything. All right. And then a little more information on intensive intervention examples. Table 16 on page 52 in the Check and Connect Implementing with Fidelity manual. This is going to have like different examples of intensive interventions and ideas when things come up, using weekly data to determine which classes a student is skipping, designing an action plan with a student and teacher, determining whether the caregivers need suggestions, resources, or help learning to provide support at home. These are just a couple good ones that we had seen in there, but page 52 in your Implementing with Fidelity manual will help you with some more ideas on interventions. And then, were we going to do this or after Danielle, the breakout rooms?
Let me see if Danielle's had a chance to join us. She had another meeting this morning. Okay, doesn't look like she's on just yet. So she's due in about 5 minutes. So do we want to maybe
Cool.
elicit some
We can
questions
just,
now?
yeah, we can just do some questions now and then pop over when she gets on and we can do breakout rooms after.
Perfect. So, friends, you're welcome to come off mute and ask Garrett some questions or add them to the chat, and I will share them with the group for him to address. Or if you have something to add to the conversation, this is something where we always love to hear your voice and learn from everyone as well.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Um, so it's easier to set goals and to do these interventions, I feel like, with the secondary grades, but I have a lot of students in elementary school, and most of theirs seem to be academic, and they're already getting pulled for resource or pulled for this. In fact, I had a teacher just email me, and I think she's in over, like, she's overwhelmed that another person wants to pull her kid out of class. And So, anyway, any suggestions with those younger kids?
As far as like how to goals, oh, I think you're on mute.
I did.
No worries.
More, I would say more the intervention kind of part, or maybe that's not as necessary as, uh, I don't know. I guess I need some clarification too on that.
Yeah, so as far as like pulling a student out, you should be meeting with each student weekly in their connect meeting. So this wouldn't goal setting or like interventions or anything like that doesn't need to be anything outside of your like already set connect meeting. I wouldn't like pull a kid to do an additional goal setting thing. With younger kids, if they're like fourth and above, goal setting is really effective still. Anything below you might even be working with the parents more and engaging them. Like, what are some goals that we can set because they're the main transportation? So if it's an attendance thing, if it's a academic thing, you can even partner with the teacher. Like, let's all kind of get together and have a conversation. Here's some homework. Here's some missing assignments. What can we do to help you guys get that? It could be an access thing for a family. Like, maybe they don't have access to internet, so we need to help them get a library card so that they can go and utilize that if it's online resources they need. Maybe there's like a MiFi or remote Wi-Fi thing that the school has that they provide. I know that there's a bill out that they're looking at having buses having school buses having Wi-Fi so that families can do that. So some of the resources, again, like as you're doing this, if you don't have access to it, then you can't really promise that. And so you shouldn't really dive into it as much. Academic wise, maybe partnering with the teacher for those younger elementary kids and seeing like what goals are there. And then you could just be that liaison that relays that information to the parents. This is what we're working on. This is a barrier that we're seeing. What do you guys need to help catch up on this work? Instead of being another person pulling out and kind of annoying the teacher and everything, what is the value that you can add to that teacher, to that family, and that student? And yeah, I would say like third and below goal setting is going to be hard or not really relevant because they're not going to remember their goal anyway. But you can even do smaller ones of like, did you take your homework out of your backpack and turn it in? Did you like, so kind of figuring out what it is to help them feel successful as a student versus like, you need to graduate and you're in second grade and that's in like 8 years and you'll never remember this conversation. Like keeping it relevant and small. So I think switching it for the age group is totally appropriate. As far as interventions, you might just be like maybe the student's behind, so you're trying to help them align with a tutor. You're trying to figure out what it is that their math pullout specialist is working on and seeing if there's anything that they need support with there, or if you can relay information at home so they can help support there as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too rambly, but
I think it was great, Garrett. And we had some comments added to the chat. Do you want to read those or should I read them for you?
yeah, I can open that up real quick.
Sweet.
Yeah, so Carolyn, I like this. A good idea to have their transcripts in front of them so they can see what they need and they can check those off as they go. They can visually see their progress. They have to have that buy-in. I love the transcripts idea. I also know, like on our Mentor Weekly notes that you guys have that you're utilizing for tracking data, there's that like not mandatory tab where you can kind of put in all their grades, their classes missed. It's modifiable by each student. So even being able to track progress on that would be really beneficial. Looking at literacy goals is what Dave said. So yeah, like we don't do our end of year testing all the time. But how can we look at different ways to improve on those literacy skills? Ashley says, how do you get teachers to be on board with supporting a student, different supports and interventions when they feel the student won't change? Yeah, I mean, that's a little deeper. Like sometimes you have a difficult teacher. And so even being that mentor that's going to advocate for what the student's working on, as students get into your program and maybe have a teacher that's not always willing, you can advocate for them to be with the teacher that is willing in the future. So sometimes it's not always what you can do in that moment, but what you can do in the future as well. But showing those goals, showing that progress, maybe it's kind of goal setting with the teacher in the room as well, or you problem solve and goal set with that student, take it to the teacher, say, this is what we're working on for this week. And when they see that success, have the teacher be part of that celebration. Maybe the teacher is the one who gives Paul his talkies when he shows up one more day, instead of the mentor. And so they're building a relationship, and the teacher is learning a personal skill that they should have as a nice adult in a building anyway. But sometimes it's not always going to be easy with the adults. That can even be more difficult. Um, Melissa, if they have an IEP, looking at their goals and accommodations and seeing if things need to be modified. Yeah. As things are like met, if there's certain things that aren't being met, what are things that can be there? There's even kids that may need to be on an IEP or a 504, and you guys are seeing that or hearing it from the parent, and parents might not know the steps to help request that. So that's a great one. How do we get bus transportation passes? Oh, I see you already responded. Asking your coordinator, building principals, student service directors, even if they don't know, reaching out to like UTA and seeing like how does that access, what do they do for students in schools and things like that as well. And then, oh, somebody else or UTA. All right, I should have scrolled down just a little more.
You're
You
good.
guys beat me to it.
It's hard not to chime in. Awesome. Well, let's check the participant panel. Looks like we are still waiting on Danielle. So, Garrett, I'm going to message her real quick. And again, if anybody has any additional questions, feel free.
And I think with the reason we were like looking at interventions and supports, when we see things kind of reported on our end through the dashboard, a lot of times people are throwing in that they're doing a lot of interventions. And so we're just wondering, like, what are you doing? How is that working? How are you progress monitoring it? Another thing is, um, I don't know if you guys utilize Panorama at all your sites. Panorama was just given the early warning system RFP for the state of Utah. So I would assume most schools and districts are going to be hopping on board that. And that is a great way to be able to plug in a support, which is just leaving a note saying that this is what we did. We called a parent. We um, got them a bus pass. We got them assigned um, like a food pantry item, any of those things, versus an intervention showing who's responsible for that, what's the time frame, and then monitoring, and you'll be able to track that all through Panorama. So as we see who's utilizing that and how that can assist in mentors roles, hopefully we'll be able to provide some more training around that as and your coordinators will be able to see that as well. But figuring out a system to track that and show also shows that you're doing your job and really good at it, which is great.
Ashley added to the chat. Do we know if a student is receiving an intervention that we're not necessarily overseeing?
Um, I think that would kind of come into like if your student is part of some sort of MTSS system at your school, whether that's like behavior, academics, or attendance, and they may be assigning things. So, like if a kid's part of a small group social skills because they're having some behavior issues in class, it would be nice if you guys are either invited to that meeting or if it's a student that you have the information somehow getting disseminated to you. It doesn't mean that you're the one responsible for running the small group social skill, unless like that also is your job. I wouldn't try to do any of these behavior interventions if you're not trained in them. But being able to know what that is, support the goal, ask them about their progress, just showing general interest in what it is that they're working on. There could be many other interventions that are happening that are assigned by some other team. And so I think figuring out that process for your site would be good. Talk to your coordinator, talk to your building admin, see if there's a way that when you share your caseload, if something's coming up, they can share additional information to help you with your role as well.
Thank you. I think that's awesome. All right, Danielle is just hopping on, friends. She will be with us in just a moment. I appreciate the patience, and Garrett, I appreciate the jumping in and answering questions right here for us.
Totally.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah, Charlene.
I have maybe a suggestion that might help Sherry. The teacher doesn't want her pulling the student out because they're already being pulled out so much. If they're young, maybe, and it depends on if you have time too, Sherry, volunteer your services in the classroom as a helper. And then maybe when the teacher is pairing up students to read together or something like that, because the teacher knows that you're working with that student, they'll say, oh, and, Bobby, why don't you pair up with Miss Porter today? And then you get that one-on-one time with them, but you're in the classroom. And so it's not that you're always pulling them out. I've found that to be helpful when kids are being pulled a lot, like you said, for resource or whatever. The teacher is less willing to send them again, but you could be in the classroom as a helper. Does that make sense? And it depends
Great.
if you have time. You could spend 30 minutes,
Yeah.
in there, 40 minutes, whatever. And, maybe you're going around helping other kids with their math, but then you make sure and focus on little Bobby and make comments. And, oh, Bobby, look, I saw that you got that right away. Good job. Maybe
Okay.
let me see, can you do this one that quickly also? So then you're giving feedback to the student and working with them there. I found that to be helpful when teachers don't want to give you as much time.
Right. Okay, that's great. And actually I did kind of mention that I could come in the classroom and stuff. So, but that's a good more specific kind of thing to do with that in the classroom. So I was hoping that would kind of help her feel like, Bobby's not going out every time, but
Right,
but
right,
still doing my job and helping. So,
right.
cool.
And then
Great.
you're interacting with the student and you're finding out, oh, they really are improving in their reading because last week I helped them and they didn't know these sight words. And this week I helped. And you can help other students too. So then they don't feel like they're being, the view is just on them. Like, oh, look at the kids are all saying, haha, Bobby has to get help again.
Right.
You're helping more than just him. So
Great.
hopefully that might help.
That's super. Oh, that's huge. Thank you.
Just an idea.
Thank you, Charlene. All right, real quick before we pass it to Danielle, Dawn, I see you raised your hand.
Good morning, everyone. I was just thinking what helps with my elementary students, but I have mostly high school, but I do have some elementary and setting up a set schedule with their teacher, asking their teacher what would work best for them. And the hour that we put into a student per week doesn't mean we need to meet with them that whole hour. We do a lot of emails behind the scenes, attending child and family team meetings. So, I guess, just to reach out to the teacher and say, I know that the student's being pulled a lot. What would be the best time and kind of become an asset to the teacher and help them to learn to buy into our program. And yeah, I've experienced that. But as soon as you let them know that you're an asset and that you're willing to work around their schedule and they start buying in, they won't leave you alone. They appreciate you and they reach out to you. So that's just, just a time. What is the best time for you, teacher? And how can we be an asset to you with this student? At the same time, you want to say, we need to do our job too. It's not an option, but just approaching it with a positive attitude and being willing to be flexible.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, absolutely. What works on their time and finding that relationship with the adult as well. Thank you for letting us stretch that out and making it work until Danielle could join us. She's here. She's my other friend, and I'm happy to see her pink hair on the screen. So, Danielle, your co-host, you should be able to share when you're ready. Take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, glad to be with you guys today. I'm going to first drop my presentation link in the chat while I get my screen share going so that you guys have access to that after the presentation. All right, let's see. Can you see my slide deck?
You are good to go.
Beautiful. Um, so hi everybody. I'm Danielle Pedersen. I'm at USBE, as you can tell by my virtual background, and I work with our adult education programs. Amanda invited me to come and talk a little bit about WIOA, because it can be a big, complicated maze to try to navigate uh, all the different resources that are available through that legislation. So, starting off with just, ooh, I skipped two. What is WIOA? It's an acronym for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's a piece of national legislation, was enacted in 2014, and it's really about helping people that have barriers to employment connect to jobs. It's the nation's way of putting together a talent development system. There's 6 broad goals of WIOA, but really it's all about connecting employers and job seekers and taking all of the different agencies and community programs that provide support services and workforce training and education and helping us connect, so that our common clients, no matter which door they come in, they're going to have access to those different resources. So making sure we're aware of what's going on with our partners and we're helping our clients access those different resources as well. The core partners under WIOA are really broadly defined. So there's 4 titles within the legislation. Title 1 has to do with youth and employment programs. These are housed under Department of Workforce Services. Title II is the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act programs, which are housed here at USBE. Title III is Wagner Pizer, which is job seeker services. I think of those really as workforce preparation, so resume writing, uh, job prep, workshops, soft skills type activities. And then Title IV is vocational rehabilitation and calling out those specific services for individuals with disabilities. And the idea really is combining and overlapping those different resources so that we can provide greater wraparound services to the clients that we work with. At a state level, this is really done through our state workforce development board. So that organization has representation from our adult education state director, Department of Workforce Services state level staff. We've got higher education on there, several employer partners, community of commerce, uh, just a really broad group of leaders across various agencies are on the executive committee for the State Workforce Development Board, or SWDB, which is a really ugly acronym, but that's how we kind of refer to it. And then there are several committees underneath that. So we have an operations committee, there's a youth committee, apprenticeship, and I currently sit on career pathways. With that group, we have the STEM Action Center, we've got higher education, we've got our CTE director from USBE, Talent Ready Utah. So really a lot of key players coming together to share resources and think about how we can expand career pathway opportunities for individuals throughout our state. At the local level, this is operationally done through the one-stop centers. So Department of Workforce Services has employment centers located all throughout the state, and they all go through a process of certification as a one-stop. And during that, they're bringing together all of their partners, not just the core partners, but also there's a list of required partners, and that includes things like Job Corps, Youth Build, United Way, the tribal associations, but it's going to vary a little bit by employment center depending on what organizations and resources are in that region for them. And they're meeting regularly with those partners to try to do the same thing, to see how we can connect our common clients and braid funds as best we can to make sure that we're providing the best experience for those individuals with barriers to employment. That's a lot, right? There's a whole lot that goes into the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's a 400-page piece of federal legislation, and it was passed in 2014, and we're still trying to figure out how we do this effectively, right? States have been in the process of implementation for a long time. So for today, I'm going to just narrow in on two pieces that I think are most relevant for this particular audience. The first being adult education, just because that's where I live and what I know the best. So I think you guys are probably somewhat familiar with adult education too, working with students in our schools. But we provide instruction to help a student obtain their diploma or GED if they are not able to finish that on a traditional pathway. We also offer basic fundamental skills training. So sometimes we have individuals who maybe had a diploma already, but are wanting to be more competitive in the workforce or move into a post-secondary program and need a refresher and want to build up their literacy or numeracy skills. And we also have a good portion of our programming that is English language instruction. Some of the things that students really like about adult education is that we have really flexible schedules, smaller classes, a lot of individualized attention. We're working with each student to develop a graduation plan on their own timeline. Beyond just getting your GED or your high school diploma, a lot of our programs offer workforce training options. They're partnering with either employers or the technical colleges to create different career pathways for students. Some of them offer workplace literacy, which is when we're bringing our programs on site for a specific employer and helping to provide the scaffolding that they need to be successful in their workplace. Other sites may have family literacy classes where they're working with both the parents and the students to develop literacy skills. And those kind of expansion programs really are because of the funding that we receive through the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, which is part of WIOA. Our state is really supportive, I think, of both adult education and workforce development. So we get a lot of state funding, and that provides the base service that we see across our school districts. But we also have this federal funding, which we're in competition for right now. It's a 3-year grant. And so some of our school districts receive that federal funding in addition to the state funding, and that's where they're able to maybe hire a counselor or a transition coordinator or create a partnership where they're providing those classes on site with an employer. So it really adds an opportunity to extend our reach through adult education. So basically, adult education is life-changing. We do a lot of really cool things. Our goal is always for students to stay in school as long as they can. We know that the wraparound supports that they're going to get in a K-12 program are more extensive than what we can provide. But when they run out of time and that isn't working for them or it's not the best match, adult education is a really great option for a lot of individuals. So keeping that in mind for the students that you work with and sometimes the adults that support them. You may need some additional services as well. So the other piece that I wanted to focus on, and we'll spend a little bit more time here because it may be less familiar than adult education, is the WIOA Youth Program. And this is offered through Workforce Services. So I will say I am not the expert. I am a core partner. I've worked with them. I've referred students. But as we get into questions, there may be times when I have to say, I don't know. You're going to want to call your local employment office to get more specific information. But the WIOA Youth Program is a really great opportunity for a lot of young people who are facing barriers to employment. They help provide financial assistance, whether that's through tuition for a post-secondary program. They'll help pay for those extras, fees, books, supplies, tools for many of those more CTE focused programs. Sometimes you're expected to have your own tools, or you need steel toe boots and you don't have those. There's sometimes just things that you need in order to be successful in a program. And this can help provide that flexible funding to support those individuals. And the students that you work with really are a priority target for that funding. So looking at um, what's covered under the WIOA Youth Program, when they look at eligibility, they're looking for, are they in the age band, which is 14 to 24? And do they meet any of the following? Being basic skills deficient, lacking a high school diploma, students with an IEP, previously or currently in foster care, pregnant or parenting, so our young parents, justice involved in any way, or homeless. So looking down that list, that probably resonates based on the work that you do with students in custody. And so many of your students would have access to these WIOA youth funds. There's also a WIOA adult program that provides similar opportunities, but it's not as extensive as the youth program. They put more funding into the youth program than they do the adult program. And I think it's just trying to capture those individuals and help move them into the workforce before they have an opportunity to become disengaged and kind of long-term government support. There's 14 different types of services that can be provided through WIOA Youth, and that ranges from tutoring to counseling, mentoring services, post-secondary transition. But the red arrows that I've added there are the ones that I have seen most frequently, and I think are the more common supports that are provided to individuals in WIOA Youth. And those are paid and unpaid work experience. So that might be like a work-based learning opportunity or an internship where their counselor is helping connect them to those work sites and working with the employers. Hopefully, sometimes having that opportunity to grow into a long-term employment opportunity. Occupational skills training usually looks like covering their tuition for a higher education program, whether that's through the tech college system or our colleges and universities that are all under the umbrella of USHE, and support services. And so those support services would be the wraparounds, the extra costs, whether that's the tools or bus passes so that they're able to attend classes, childcare if that's a concern. And it's really hard to say exactly what supports will be provided because it's so individualized. So as a student is identified as an eligible client, they're working with a caseworker to determine what their goals are and what their barriers are, and then what supports they will need to overcome those barriers. I'm going to share a short video, and if you can't hear it, let me know because we did not test this ahead of time.
I'm not hearing any audio, Danielle.
Okay, we've got no audio.
So either you could reshare because I know there's a little click mark you have to do for sound,
That's true. We could try.
or we can, if you have a link, we can give everybody.
Let's try the reshare quick.
Good.
Yes, there you go. I didn't click the
I don't know why it doesn't just do it automatically. I
green
feel like
sound.
it should.
Maybe sometimes we don't want to share all the sound. Who knows? But
I suppose that's true. That's true.
all right, this is about 2 minutes. So let me restart that for you guys and let me know again if we're able to hear any better.
Looking for something more? You've come to the right place to find a new job, a new career, a new degree, or to complete your GED. When you enroll in our no-cost career and education programs, you'll get one-on-one coaching that can put you on the path to success. Your path could lead to a new job, your GED, a 2-year degree, or a technical certificate. You could get one-on-one career coaching and connect with an employer for on-the-job training, internships, and apprenticeships. You may be eligible if you've been laid off from a job, have a qualifying household income, if you're between the ages of 14 and 24 and are out of school and struggling to connect to employment, start or finish school, and struggling at school or work, or if you've been in foster care. It's easy to get started. Simply click on the Apply Now button on this page to get started. For assistance, you can also visit the closest Workforce Services Employment Center. You can find all the locations on our website. If you don't already have a Utah ID, it's easy to create one. Go to jobs.utah.gov, click on Sign in the upper right corner, then Create an Account. If you need help, view our Create an Account video on YouTube. After completing your application, you'll be contacted within 3 business days to schedule an appointment with a career counselor who has reviewed your application. They'll help you understand what additional documents and information might be needed, and you'll have 45 days to provide them that information. Once you're enrolled, you'll meet with your counselor to determine which programs you're eligible for. They'll also help you create an individual plan. Your plan will include exploring different career options, helping you set an employment goal that's a good fit for your interest and abilities, determining what steps, funding, and resources are needed to achieve your goals. This could be getting your GED or a certificate, putting your resume together, and more. And finally, connecting you to service providers, community resources, and training opportunities. Get started today and get one-on-one help that leads to a brighter future.
There we go. So you may be able to tell that that's a little bit of a older video based on the masks that we saw. But all of the information for that is current. Let's see. I'm trying to move on to my next slide and need to get out of the video. So I stopped screen share for just a second. All right, get this going again. Technical difficulties, my friends.
I understand all too well. I tried to host in the office recently, so.
All right, there we
There
go.
we go. Yep.
So as they were talking about those eligibility requirements, they called out in foster care specifically. So I wanted to dive into some of the foster care specific benefits that are available. And the main one is what they call an ETV. It's an education and training voucher, which is basically a flexible scholarship that can be provided for foster youth so that they can pursue post-secondary education. And when I say that it's flexible funding, what I mean is that it doesn't have to be used for just tuition. It can be used for any of those additional things that individuals need to be successful in their post-secondary transition experience. So if they qualify for a Pell Grant or they have a scholarship, they can still qualify for this ETV to help maybe pay for room and board in a dorm room or their meal plan at the university or textbooks, anything that they would need to support them so that they can be successful in that training program. That's often talked about in conjunction with the TAL or Transition to Adult Living, which is actually managed by DCFS, but they work really closely together with the Department of Workforce Services. So most students that are receiving the ETV are also receiving the Transition to Adult Living support. And I'll dive into each of those just a little bit. So with the education and training voucher, this gives you some additional information. It's up to $5,000 per year, and up to 5 years that they can receive that additional funding. And it's to help them with skill development and job obtainment. They have to have been in foster care or aged out um, at some point after the age of 16. And they have to have applied and been accepted into a post-secondary institution. This gives a little bit more information on what that looks like. So in order to maintain that scholarship, they have to have a 2.0 GPA and continue working with their employment counselor at the Department of Workforce Services to keep them updated on what they're working on and share grades and attendance and make sure that they're meeting that 2.0 requirement. The 3,000 or the ETV, we set up to 5,000. What that looks like generally is about 3,000 if they're not participating in the transition to adult learning program, living program as well. So if they're doing both the portion with DCFS and DWS, then they're going to qualify for up to $5,000 per year. And really you'll want to work with your local Department of Workforce Services coordinator. Each employment center has a youth specialist that would be able to work with you on those individuals and see what they qualify for. I've even seen for some of our younger students that are still working on completing a high school diploma, if not having a diploma is a barrier to them going to post-secondary or workforce, sometimes they'll give them an incentive just to complete their high school diploma or GED. And I've seen that up like $300 to $500, which sometimes is enough of an incentive for a student that's stalling out to finish up those last couple of credits and move on to their next step. The other piece is that transition to adult learning that's run through DCFS. And this is more about the other supports besides education and training. So if a student needs housing support, transportation, access to medical care, to make sure that they're able to be successful and independent as they're aging out of foster care, this is an opportunity for those individuals. And for that, you're going to work through Department of Human Services. I've shared contact information there, and so that's why I wanted to make sure you guys had the link to this presentation so that you can see the different DHHS centers in your area and know who to reach out to. I want to wrap up with just one more short video. This is a success story, and then I'll leave up contact information and take any questions.
So I live here in Hilldale, and I just completed high school. I was a little late starting it, so I completed it all in 3 years, and now I'm graduated, and it's been fun. My sister and one of my friends had applied for this years of the intern thing. Like, I was really nervous in the beginning. Like, I was scared of the mock interview. I was afraid I was going to be a little bit late because it was at 8 o'clock right when school started, and sometimes I'm a little bit late. And I actually got there on time. My favorite part was learning about write out like payments and stuff, but I also did that. But I also put payments in the computer and how to like do their paperwork. I didn't realize I would learn that. I felt like I would just meet more people. So one of the things Mike did for us, he threw us a ball and was like, you know, say the first thing that comes to your mind, and you had to do it like really quick because like in interviews they ask you questions and they want to like how fast your brain works or whatever, and how fast that you can answer a question. And that was a really fun thing. I didn't even know how to write a resume or a cover letter, and now I do. With interviewing, I feel more comfortable about that. It was a lot of fun. It was a good experience. I would do it over again. I haven't quite decided what I want to do, but I am thinking college. I'm thinking I will start here and then I can transfer to Dixie. It's worth the experience. You learn so many new things that school doesn't teach you. But yeah, I would encourage them to do it for sure. Thank you to Mike for helping me get out of my comfort zone and pushing me to do it because I was a little bit scared.
I always love to share a success story and connect students into any presentation. And that was a student that participated in one of the internship opportunities that was provided through the youth program. So I shared several different things. If you have questions related to adult education, you're going to reach out to my team. I've got our website link there that has all of our contact information for that WIOA youth program and the education and training vouchers. You'll work through Department of Workforce Services. I've got a link there to the office search so that you can find the employment center closest to you in your community. And then for the transition to adult living, that's going to be through Department of Health and Human Services. And that link will just take you back to that contact page that has all of the different sites throughout the state. All right, so that's what I had prepared for you guys. Happy to take any questions, or we can move right into breakout rooms and people are welcome to pop in there.
Thank you, Danielle. I love seeing how our agencies partner together to support our kiddos. Like hadn't actually realized myself the connection to TAL, so that was awesome. So thank you. All right, friends, any questions we want to ask Danielle as a group before we move into breakout sessions? Welcome to come off mute or throw it in the chat. All right, well, fair enough. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so let's see. Let's get my brain together. All right, breakout room number 1 will be with Garrett. If you want to talk more about, and hang on, I'm pushing buttons and can't talk at the same time. There we go. So if you want to meet with Garrett and talk more about goal setting, problem solving, or intensive interventions, he'll hop into breakout 1. And then breakout 2 will be with Danielle if you have more questions about WIOA. Breakout 3 will be with, 3, listen to me as I hold up 4. Anyway, breakout 3 will be with Julia and Charlene are at least on the call. Those are our 2 trainers who are with us. So you should see breakout room. I have one more button. Breakout rooms should be opening and it should allow you to manually pick whether you want to go to 1, 2, or 3. If you need me to help with that process, please come off mute or now I can see it, throw it in the chat and I will assign you to a specific room. You should see a new pop-up box with the breakout rooms. That's typically what I see on my screen. Anyway, yeah, so please hop into breakout rooms and ask Garrett and Danielle and our trainers more questions or give us just a minute to kind of sort through things and I'll entertain conversation here as well. Let's see. I'll put you guys in breakout 1.